Did you know that by 2026, millions of people could be forced to leave Canada? Yes, you heard that right. A new wave of shocking immigration laws is on the horizon, and they could change the lives of millions of residents, permanent or not. What if your future in Canada was suddenly in jeopardy, all because of a law you didn't even see coming? Imagine trying to build a life in one of the world's most welcoming countries, only to face harsh new rules that could send you packing. These new laws are coming fast, and they could drastically limit who can stay in Canada, who gets to move here, and who must leave. It's not just about immigration. It's about the future of millions living here right now. Stick with us as we break down the 10 most shocking immigration laws set to shake up Canada. You won't believe what's coming next. Number 1. Capping permanent residency applications. One of the most talked about changes is the potential capping of permanent residency applications. Canada has long been known for its welcoming approach to immigrants, but this could soon change. The government is considering implementing strict quotas, meaning there will be a limited number of people who can apply for permanent residency each year. This would not only change the way immigration works, but could make it much harder for newcomers to establish long-term roots in the country. Under this new law, it's possible that only a certain percentage of applications from each country or region would be approved. Imagine waiting years for your chance to apply, only to be told there are no available spots for that year. It would create fierce competition, and only the most qualified or fortunate applicants might get the opportunity to stay. This change could be devastating for many, especially those who have already built lives in Canada but are now at risk of losing their status. The impact of such a law would be far-reaching. Families could be separated, businesses could lose skilled workers, and communities could be torn apart. While the idea behind capping the number of applications is to control population growth and maintain economic stability, it also risks shutting out talented individuals who would otherwise contribute to Canada's prosperity. If this policy goes through, it will mark a dramatic shift in Canada's immigration landscape, leaving many wondering if they'll have the chance to call this country their home for good. Number 2. Stricter language requirements. Another significant change on the horizon involves the introduction of stricter language requirements for immigration applicants. Currently, Canada requires that immigrants demonstrate proficiency in either English or French, but the level of fluency required could soon be raised. The government is considering making the language proficiency test more difficult, ensuring that only those with a higher level of fluency will be able to meet the necessary standards. This move is part of a broader strategy to integrate immigrants more effectively into Canadian society, but may leave many qualified applicants struggling to meet the new benchmarks. The higher language requirements would impact anyone applying for permanent residency, work visas, or even student visas. What makes this change especially concerning is that many potential immigrants may already speak the language at a functional level, but could still fall short of the new, stricter standards. Those who have spent years learning English or French might now find themselves facing a challenge that could derail their immigration plans. This could lead to delays in applications, rejections, and an even more competitive immigration process. The consequences of these tougher language laws could be significant, particularly for those who are already in Canada or who have family members awaiting sponsorship. If they fail to meet the new language standards, they may face the heart-wrenching decision to leave the country or never even be granted the opportunity to enter. While the government argues that this policy will promote better integration, it raises the question, how many people will be left out of Canada's future because they couldn't pass a more demanding language test? The changes could alter the entire fabric of Canada's immigrant population, leaving many uncertain about their place in the country. Number 3. Deportation of criminal offenders. One of the most controversial proposals under Canada's new immigration laws is the deportation of criminal offenders, even those with permanent residency or Canadian citizenship. While Canada has always had some provisions for deporting individuals who commit serious crimes, the new law aims to expand these rules, making it easier to remove individuals from the country for even minor offenses. This could mean that someone who has committed a crime years ago, or even a low-level offense, could face deportation, regardless of how long they've lived in Canada or how deeply they've integrated into Canadian society. This shift in policy is seen as a way to strengthen public safety and deter criminal behavior among immigrants. However, It also raises serious concerns for many permanent residents and even Canadian citizens who may have committed offenses in their past but have since turned their lives around. For example, an individual with a criminal conviction from a decade ago who has since been rehabilitated and contributed positively to society could still face deportation. This is a drastic step that many argue could tear families apart and punish those who have already paid their debt to society. The broader impact of this policy is hard to overstate. Thousands of people could potentially face deportation under these new rules, leading to widespread fear and uncertainty among immigrant communities. Families that have been living in Canada for years, or even decades, could be separated overnight. While the intention may be to create a safer environment, the reality is that many innocent people who have worked hard to build a life in Canada could find themselves forced to leave without warning. This policy shift represents a huge shift in the way Canada handles immigration and crime, and it's something everyone should be paying close attention to. Number 4. New work visa limitations. A major shift in Canada's immigration policies involves new restrictions on work visas, which could have far-reaching consequences for the country's economy and its reliance on foreign talent. Currently, Canada offers a variety of work visa options for skilled workers, temporary workers, and even students who want to gain work experience. However, the new policy proposals aim to tighten these options, limiting the number of work visas issued and introducing more stringent requirements for approval. This change could make it much more difficult for international workers to secure jobs in Canada, especially in industries that are heavily reliant on foreign labor. The government justifies these changes as a means of prioritizing Canadian workers and reducing the strain on public resources. However, the reality is that many sectors, like healthcare, technology, construction, and agriculture, depend on immigrant workers to fill crucial gaps in the workforce. If work visas are limited, these industries could face significant labor shortages, potentially slowing down economic growth and causing disruptions in essential services. This could lead to fewer job opportunities for immigrants, especially those from countries with high levels of unemployment or economic instability. For individuals hoping to work in Canada, these restrictions could mean that their dreams of living and working in one of the world's most sought-after countries might be dashed. The stricter eligibility requirements could leave many workers who were previously able to enter Canada in limbo, unsure whether they'll be able to continue their careers here. With fewer available work permits, only the most qualified or fortunate individuals might be able to stay, creating a highly competitive environment for foreign workers. For many, this could be a devastating blow, putting their future in Canada at risk. Number 5. Stricter family reunification rules. One of the most emotional and impactful changes proposed in Canada's new immigration laws is the tightening of family reunification policies. For years, Canada has been known for its relatively lenient approach to family sponsorship, allowing immigrants to bring their spouses, children, and other close family members to join them in the country. However, under the new laws, the process for family reunification could become much more difficult and drawn out. The government is considering imposing stricter eligibility requirements and longer waiting periods for family members seeking to join their loved ones in Canada. This change could have a profound effect on thousands of families who are already waiting for approval to reunite with their loved ones. The stricter rules might require sponsors to prove more substantial financial stability, provide additional documentation, or undergo more rigorous background checks before they are allowed to sponsor a family member. What makes this policy particularly concerning is that it could significantly delay family reunifications, forcing loved ones to remain separated for years. Many individuals who have already built a life in Canada could be left in limbo, waiting to bring their families to join them. The emotional toll of these stricter policies cannot be overstated. Immigrants who came to Canada to seek a better life might find themselves unable to bring their families with them, or face lengthy delays that strain relationships. In some cases, family members who have already been approved for sponsorship could be rejected under the new rules, leaving them in an uncertain and heartbreaking situation. While these changes are framed as a way to reduce immigration backlogs and ensure that families are self-sufficient, they could have the opposite effect, creating more barriers and hardship for those hoping to reunite with their loved ones in Canada. If you're finding value in this video, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button. It's just one click, but it means the world to us. We put so much effort into bringing you these important updates, and your support helps us keep going. Leave a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Number 6. Higher income requirements for sponsors. Another significant change in Canada's immigration policies is the proposed increase in minimum income requirements for sponsors. Currently, individuals who wish to sponsor family members to come to Canada must prove that they can financially support their relatives once they arrive. However, under the new rules, the government is considering raising the financial thresholds that sponsors must meet in order to bring family members into the country. This would mean that many potential sponsors, who might have previously been able to bring their loved ones to Canada, could now be disqualified due to insufficient income. This change could have serious implications for those hoping to reunite with their families in Canada. Many immigrants who are already living in Canada have built their lives on modest incomes, and the new, higher income requirements could put them in an impossible position. For example, someone who is working a full-time job in Canada might find that their salary no longer meets the new standards, leaving them unable to sponsor their spouse, children, or parents. The increased financial burden could also put pressure on families who are already struggling to make ends meet, forcing them to either abandon their sponsorship applications or face lengthy delays in reuniting with loved ones. The impact of this policy change could be felt across many communities, particularly for immigrants from lower-income backgrounds or developing countries. Family reunification has always been a key part of Canada's immigration system, helping immigrants build stable, supportive lives. But with the new financial requirements, this process could become out of reach for many. This could lead to greater separation between family members, leaving individuals isolated from their loved ones or forcing them to reconsider their future in Canada. The proposed changes represent a major shift in how the government views and handles family-based immigration, and the consequences could be life-altering for many. Number 7. Elimination of temporary residency options. Canada's immigration landscape could see another drastic change with the elimination of certain temporary residency options. Currently, temporary residency allows individuals to work, study, or live in Canada for a limited time, often acting as a stepping stone to permanent residency. However, the government is considering removing some of these temporary residency programs, such as certain student and work visas, that have been widely used by immigrants. This policy change could severely limit the opportunities for people seeking to come to Canada temporarily, whether for education, career development, or short-term employment. For many individuals, obtaining temporary residency has been a crucial first step towards establishing a life in Canada. International students, for example, often rely on student visas to gain an education and then transition into the workforce through post-graduation work permits. If these pathways were eliminated, many hopeful immigrants could be shut out of the Canadian dream altogether. It would also impact industries that rely heavily on foreign workers, including technology, agriculture, and hospitality, potentially leading to labor shortages in key sectors. These changes would limit the flexibility that many immigrants currently rely on to enter Canada and build their future. The consequences of this policy could be far-reaching, especially for younger generations or those in need of temporary employment opportunities. Without these temporary visas, individuals who have dreams of studying or gaining international work experience in Canada may be forced to look elsewhere for opportunities. Additionally, current temporary residents who are working or studying in Canada could face uncertainty about their status and future. The potential elimination of these residency options is a major shift that could reshape the flow of immigration into Canada, making it even harder for people to gain entry and build a life in this welcoming country. Number 8. Stricter refugee asylum claims. A significant shift in Canada's immigration policy could soon affect refugees seeking asylum. Historically, Canada has been a leader in offering refuge to those fleeing conflict, violence, and persecution. However, the government is now considering more stringent measures for refugees applying for asylum. These measures would increase the screening process and introduce tighter eligibility criteria, making it more difficult for refugees to gain entry into the country. Applicants could face more invasive background checks, health evaluations, and even interviews to prove their asylum claims, resulting in longer waiting periods and a greater chance of rejection. This tougher approach to refugee claims could have devastating consequences for people fleeing life-threatening situations. Those who manage to survive harrowing conditions in their home countries might find their hopes of safety dashed by new bureaucratic hurdles. For many, Canada has been seen as a beacon of hope, a place where they could rebuild their lives. But with the new restrictions, thousands of refugees could be denied entry, potentially forcing them to return to dangerous environments or live in limbo for years while their cases are processed. The policy change would create a major barrier to those who need protection the most. In addition to the humanitarian concerns, the policy could disrupt Canada's international reputation. Canada has long prided itself on being a welcoming country for those in need. By tightening refugee asylum laws, the government risks alienating communities and international organizations that rely on Canada's commitment to human rights. The impact of this policy could also extend to those already in Canada under temporary asylum status, as they might face uncertainty about their future in the country. With the new rules, it's clear that Canada's immigration system is shifting, and refugees could be among the hardest hit by these changes. Number 9. More stringent health screenings for immigrants. A new proposal under Canada's immigration overhaul is the introduction of more stringent health screenings for all incoming immigrants. Historically, Canada has required certain health checks, particularly for contagious diseases, to prevent the spread of illness. However, the new policy would expand these requirements to include more rigorous medical evaluations. Immigrants would be expected to undergo detailed health assessments, including vaccinations, mental health evaluations, and even tests for conditions that may not have previously been scrutinized. These changes could create significant barriers for many applicants, especially those with chronic illnesses or mental health issues. For some, the health screening could mean being denied entry into Canada, even if they have a clean criminal record and meet other immigration criteria. The added medical requirements would place extra pressure on immigrants who are already navigating a complex and expensive immigration process. Those who fail to meet the new health standards could face deportation or be forced to leave the country after years of living in Canada. This could result in many people being excluded from the country based on their health status, which could be both a major financial burden and an emotional setback for those affected. The implementation of these stricter health checks also raises questions about Canada's commitment to inclusivity. While public health is important, the policy may unintentionally discriminate against people with conditions that don't pose an immediate threat to the public. Immigrants who are otherwise qualified but have health issues might find themselves locked out of the country, despite contributing positively to Canadian society. This could lead to a situation where only those in perfect health can enter or stay, which might be at odds with the values of compassion and diversity that Canada has long championed. Number 10. Increased financial requirements for immigrants. One of the most significant changes in Canada's proposed immigration laws is the increase in financial requirements for immigrants seeking to settle in the country. Under the new rules, individuals will be required to prove they have significantly more financial resources before being granted entry. This change is aimed at ensuring that immigrants can support themselves without relying on public assistance. However, this shift could exclude many potential immigrants who don't meet the new, higher thresholds, despite their qualifications or desire to contribute to Canadian society. The financial burden could be particularly challenging for individuals coming from lower-income backgrounds or countries with weaker economies. Many hopeful immigrants already struggle with the costs associated with visa applications, legal fees, and settlement expenses. The increased financial requirements could push the dream of moving to Canada further out of reach for thousands of individuals who might otherwise have been eligible under previous guidelines. This policy could create a barrier for people who are already struggling to make ends meet but still have the potential to succeed in Canada with the right opportunities. Additionally, this policy could create a two-tier immigration system, where only the wealthiest individuals are able to immigrate, while those from modest or disadvantaged backgrounds are excluded. This shift could undermine the very principles that have made Canada a diverse and welcoming nation. By prioritizing financial stability over skills, education, and experience, the country risks narrowing its talent pool and missing out on contributions from highly capable individuals. If these changes are implemented, many immigrants could find themselves excluded from the opportunity to build a life in Canada, even if they are perfectly capable of integrating and contributing to the country's future. In conclusion, Canada's proposed immigration changes represent a dramatic shift in the way the country handles its immigration system. The potential laws could affect millions of individuals currently living in Canada, as well as those hoping to make Canada their new home in the coming years. From the capping of permanent residency applications to the tighter language requirements, these laws are designed to address issues like population growth, labor shortages, and economic stability. However, they also bring with them significant risks, including family separation, increased financial barriers, and the exclusion of deserving individuals. As we've seen, the changes in policies could lead to a more competitive and restrictive immigration system, with many applicants being left out due to stricter qualifications or financial thresholds. People who have already built their lives in Canada might face uncertainty, as more stringent rules threaten to take away their status or prevent them from bringing their loved ones to join them. On the other hand, those trying to immigrate might find themselves blocked by higher health standards, work visa limitations, or long waiting periods. Ultimately, the impact of these changes would depend on how they are implemented and who they ultimately affect. While Canada's goal of balancing economic stability and public safety is understandable, it's important to remember that the country's strength has always been in its diversity and inclusivity. The proposed laws could narrow the door for future immigrants and risk undermining Canada's reputation as a global leader in immigration and human rights. If these changes go through, Canada will have to carefully navigate the fine line between securing its borders and maintaining the values of compassion and opportunity that have made it such an attractive destination for people around the world. If you found this video eye-opening, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and let us know how these changes might affect you or those you know. We pour a lot of effort into creating these videos, so your support means the world to us. Just one click to subscribe helps us keep bringing you the most important updates. Stay informed, stay connected, and don't miss out. Subscribe now.